staying in regional Australia, we mentioned a little earlier about several towns in regional New South Wales being left without drinking water. Great little places, Lisa, like Wongarbin, Mudgee, and of course Dubbo in the New South Wales Central West. The town's or the city's mayor, Matthew Dickerson, joins us live now. Good morning, Matt. People don't expect to get barley belly in Dubbo. What's going on?
No, it is a bit drastic, isn't it? It's a bit disappointing. We have apologised to our residents. It's not something that I want to be sitting here as mayor and telling our residents that they're going to have to boil their water. But it's a bit of an unusual circumstance. We've had 2009, obviously, terrible drought across the entire region. And that meant that you ended up with more carcasses on sides of river. In fact, you ended up with a lot more animals coming down two rivers around the region trying to find some water, obviously. So they end up being more fecal matter along the sides of river. Then you have a flood event like we've got at the moment, and that picks up a lot of that debris along the sides of the river. And so you end up with the water being more turbid. Now, the water treatment plant was only upgraded back in 2006. We spent $23 million on our water treatment plant, but we never expected to have the level of turbidity coming into the water treatment plant. So it just could not handle that level of turbidity to get the level coming out the other end being good enough to be classified as clean drinking water. So it was only just over the standard, but for 10 hours we couldn't produce that standard. So now we're still in that boil water alert, which we've been in for the last week.
Right, so what's the solution then, Matt? Is it you have to have more bores as a backup? I mean, a lot of towns and cities are going through this at the moment, trying to make themselves more resilient to deal with these kind of more droughts and floods and things like that in the future.
I think you're actually spot on. The more bore option is a good option there. We have got climate change. We're going to have more extreme events, so we've got to get to the point where we can plan for this. We need to be more resilient. So we do have a bore network here in Dubbo at the moment, but we can't take 100% of the water that we need for our water treatment plant from those bores. And in this scenario, if we had enough bores, we would have been able to switch off water coming from the river and switch over entirely to bores and run from there. Now, we don't normally like to take too much water from our bores because you've got to do more treatment to the water from bores, so it gets more expensive to actually treat that water. But in this scenario, this would have been a way to avoid that. So that's part of our plan going forward, is to expand our bore network, have it in the back of our pocket, if you like, ready to go if this sort of scenario occurs again in the future. Hopefully it won't happen for a long time, but if it did, we'd be able to switch over entirely to a bore network. So that's certainly one part of the solution. And even the way water treatment plants are planned, the way they're built, we need to actually get to that point where we do have the ability to take more turbid water in the future.
Matt, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning.
My pleasure.
I grew up near Dubbo. We used to have rainwater for that exact reason, rainwater tanks to make sure that you could avoid that kind of thing.